Guys, how are we doing? Welcome to Talking Boxing. It is Monday, July 15th, 2024. And what a weekend it was. Well, not just a weekend, what a week it's been in boxing. Of course, we had the No Limit show last Wednesday night. I'm sure you'll all want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. We had the cancelled Janibek and Mikhailovic fight that was supposed to take place yesterday. That was cancelled. Skye Nicholson, of course, had her win. And will we see Kambosos Parro? So we've got a bit to unpack there. We've got a few comments already in the chat. So welcome to everyone that's tuning in, whether you're live or listening after the fact on Spotify. Don't forget, if you can't actually watch us live or watch me live, or you're not really big on the YouTube thing, you can listen to me on Spotify, okay? And if you are listening on Spotify, you don't need me to tell you that. But welcome to everybody already. So just again, if you've got a comment or question or a point you'd like to make, put it in the chat. And you guys and girls are in charge of the direction of the show, hence the name, Talking Boxing. I just give my 2 cents, and you guys can obviously talk amongst yourselves as well. All right, so I'm not quite sure what order in there, guys. When we first come up, if there's comments in the chat already, they're all over the place, so I'll try and get to them as best I can. We'll start with Big J, the old mate Big J, that is. Lots to talk about. Skye's domination of a club fighter, potential fight with Liam and George. Yep, Nikita's next fight with Zerafa. Sorry, Nikita's next fight and Zerafa and Tommy Brown on the undercard. Well, I didn't even mention that, Big J. I want to probably talk about that as well. The chump still ducking Big J versus the chump. Well, let's get into it first. Just also in the chat, we've got Asbot in there. How are you there, mate? Tommy Dokes, welcome there, mate. Mutsy, how are you, Mutsy? And I've got a few already that are watching, so I'm sure as the show goes on, we'll get a few more. Let's start with your comment there, Big J. Where do I start? Well, look, if you had asked me last week, and I think we did discuss it last week, what's going to happen in Skye Nicholson's fight? Well, she'll face a very, very limited opponent. Can't punch, limited hand speed, no footwork, not really much technique, and she will win every single round by shutout and win the decision 100-90. And, geez, call me Nostradamus. That is what exactly happened. Now, look, I'm not totally going to get stuck into Skye here. She only fights who she's told to fight. But, geez, if you want to be taken seriously as a world champion, I know she's got the WBC belt. Not many Aussies have actually had that WBC belt, by the way. I'm just thinking Jeff Harding and Jeff Fennick, probably the last, and obviously George Kambosos. Anyway, let me know there, guys. But, yeah, look, she done what she had to do. That's all I'm going to say. Was it impressive? Well, I think that's arguable. She's improving. What has she had? 11. Hang on, a record here somewhere. So she's 11-0 now. But I think to be taken seriously, I know she gets thrown up, with the male world champions we've got. I don't think we can sort of take Skye Nicholson seriously. And all due respect to her, she's won a belt, so good on her. All the rest of it, full respect. But if you really want to be taken seriously and as a world champion, and especially if she wants that Amanda Serrano fight, let's fight some decent fighters. It's just, I don't know. I only watched bits and pieces. I found myself sort of wandering off or, daydreaming. I was hoping I might see something a little bit different. But let's face it, she's got a winning style. She fights the same way every time and just hasn't been tested at all. I barely think she's lost a round in her 11 fights, to be honest. But while I think she'll be respected by most fight fans, I strongly doubt that. While she'll be respected for her accomplishments, of course, she's a world champion. Geez, but as far as being respected as that elite fighter, an elite world champion, I'm yet to be convinced. Yes, she's an Aussie. We respect her fully, as I said, but until she fights someone that's, at least half capable, I'm going to reserve my judgment on that one. Liam Parro and George Kambosos. Well, I know it's sort of a little bit of hearsay at the moment, just rumours and innuendo, but when you've got our old mate, with all due respect there, you Big J, old mate, Noonan Boy, on his page breaking this news, and we all know he's very, very close with George. So if he's saying it, it must be must be legit. We haven't, well, actually, I was just going to say we haven't really seen it elsewhere, but Eddie Hearn did a quick grab on it as well. But as I said, where there's smoke, there's fire. And if Noonan Boy's saying it, then you can take it to the bank that they are heavily in negotiations. I did see that apparently Shakur Stevenson is interested in fighting George Kambosos. So work that one out. I doubt that one. I don't think Shakur Stevenson would see George as a viable opponent at the moment. He's got that WBC belt. He's got enough problems without having that hanging over his head. Because this, I'm taking my Australian hat off here. In the States, George at the moment he's just, I won't say he's damaged goods, but he's just put to the side for the time being. He's lost 3 of his last 4 fights, arguably all 4. So I think he's being parked at the moment. Shakur Stevenson's getting enough flack without copping it for fighting George Kambosos coming off a loss. So we'll wait and see with that one. But what a fight that would be. And I know I've been vocal to say, no, it won't happen. They're friends. Well, when there's money and belts on the line, well, all that goes out the window. And I think they would be very respectful about it if they do fight. And what a win. Who wins? Let us know in the chat there. I'll quickly go through the rest of your points here, mate, and we'll move on. Nikita's next fight. Yep, Koa Mazudia. I like the fight. I like the fight on paper. I think Koa Mazudia comes to fight. He's not a big puncher, but he's durable. He's tough. But my personal opinion is, while I like the fight, I think that Nikita will figuratively punch holes through Koa Mazudia. I think he'll just be a punching bag for Nikita, and that's fine. I've got nothing bad to say about this fight at all. Koa Mazudia is a very willing and capable opponent for Nikita. I just think he's just custom made for Nikita, and I think Nikita Tszyu has a field day against Koa Mazudia and Zerafa and Brown. Where do I start? You talk about Skye Nicholson in her search for legitimacy. Well, Michael Zerafa, he's been talking up a little in the last little bit about maybe possible fights with Liam Smith, and then there was maybe Chris Eubank Jr. and all sorts of fights being sort of thrown around, and he's been the one that's been throwing out a lot of these little tidbits. And he fights Tommy Brown. Are you kidding me? Ridiculous opponent. And I know what they're doing. I know they want to get Michael Zerafa an easy kill with a semi-half decent name in Tommy Brown. I'm going to quickly bring up his record or his last opponents while we're going there, guys, because I need to have a little bit of info at my, what's his name? Tommy Brown. Okay. Is it with an E? I think it is. Tommy Brown. Let's have a look. I don't think he's fought for about 3 years. If I've got the right one. All right. 40, there he is, 45, 8 and 2. Hasn't fought, actually, geez, there you go. I take that back. He's had a couple of fights this year against a couple of ties over in Thailand, but hey, at least he's back. At least he's back. I was going to say, you're kidding me. It's been nearly 2 years since his last fight. But lost to Dennis Hogan back in 21. And anyway. But look, 41 years of age. Come on, Michael. We can do better than that. 41. I know he's aiming for the Nikita fight after that. And you can see what's going to happen. They'll get an easy kill here. Nikita will win. Maybe they'll fight next. Or maybe Michael gets another fight. But I can't wait for, what's his name? Gorgeous George? Is that what he calls himself? George Rose. I can't wait for the spin on this one. Michael Zerafa and Tommy Brown. Can't wait. This is, apart from Nikita and Cohen, this is the next biggest fight in the division, and blah, 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 is what I'm going to say about that. George Rose. Jeez, the spin he's put on some of the events lately. Fair dinkum. Anyway, enough for the no limit bashing. Let's move on. All right, Big J. Hang on, what's that one there? Democrats just screwed themselves, and I couldn't be happier. Yeah, that was not great, was it? What happened to the Big Don over the weekend? And I think regardless of the side, and we're not going to talk politics, by the way. Don't get me started. I did enough of that last Wednesday night. Regardless of what side you're on, and I am firmly 100% on the Big Don side, that just should not happen. And even though I'm not a fan of the Democrats and Joe Biden and everyone else, I would not wish that upon him or anyone in that part or else in that party. Well, maybe Nancy Pelosi, but shh, don't say I said that. Anyway, yeah, no, you wouldn't wish that upon anyone, and it's good that he's okay. And Going to fight the good fight there, Big J. All right, there, and still with Big J. Geez, mate, you're hogging the comments here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Yes, help a brother in Lynden out. Hey, we're up to 1,400 people now, followers now, Big J. So we're hitting the big time. Also, quick poll: who wins between the chump and me? Cast your vote now. Well, if you know Joel McAllister and Big J, put your vote in the chat there. But yeah, if you like and subscribe, guys, that would be fantastic. Fantastic. As I said, we're up to 1,400 people now. It's interesting that when we do the live watch-alongs, we always get a real nice little spike. So I really appreciate everyone that's out there, either live or listening later, or you just come into the watch-along looking for a free stream and you thought, oh, well, while I'm here, I'll hit the subscribe button. So thank you to everyone that has taken the time. All right, Asbot, how are you, mate? If Ortiz Jr. KO's Bohachuck, then he's legit beast. I can't wait for that fight. What is it, August 10th in Las Vegas? Should be a really good fight, and it's a week after the Riyadi season of card with Crawford and Madrimov. So, yeah, it's going to be a big couple of weeks. And if you didn't see it as well, news is imminent with Tim Tszyu's next opponent being announced as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. I know someone's going to ask in there. I have heard a few little tidbits. I'm not going to give up sources or the information until it's official, because I've heard about 3 different opponents being mentioned, and I'm not going to comment on something that we're all sort of still guessing. But they're all pretty reliable sources, but they've all given me 3 different opponents. So anyway, we'll just wait and see. But good to see that Tim might be back September, October, around that time. All these guys are fighting. By the time Tim does actually fight, we would have had the Riyadi card and this fight. And I think, when is Spence and Fundora? I think that's around October, November as well. So, there's going to be some massive 154-pound fights about to happen. But I'm with you there, Asbot. Ortiz, if he can get past Bohachuck, who's showed a lot in his last fight with Brian Mendoza, if he wins that, he's legit 100%. Bohachuck destroys Ortiz, says Big J, and derails the hype train. All right, what's that there? Speaking of the chump, he's speaking with our mate George Rose on Wednesday. Hopefully he can talk up the fight and we can get our payday. Okay. You reckon Ortiz is hype? Serious question. I am unconvinced, Asbot. No, I don't think he's hype, but I don't think he's proven, if that makes sense. I think he's a very, very good fighter. He can obviously punch, but is he a hype job? I'm not going to go that far, but yes, I still think he needs to get some legacy type wins happening, and this is the first step. Bohachuck is a very, very good opponent, and if he does beat Bohachuck, he's obviously been willing to fight Tim Tszyu, so it's not like he's ducking the serious guys out there. So if he gets past Bohachuck, and then we might have the Tim Tszyu fight after that, that will tell us all we need to know. But yeah, as I said, I'm not going to say he's a hype job, but definitely unproven at this stage, I think. Ortiz Bohachuck is on, apparently, yep, August the 10th, mate, Las Vegas at the Mandalay Bay, to be exact. Great scrap. Bohachuck has almost same KO stats, but has been more active and definitely more active 154. I think he wins a decision. It's a tough fight to pick, as bottom. I haven't really made up my mind. I think from what we've seen of Ortiz, look, he's that typical, Mexican sort of beast, isn't he? But he's a very, very good puncher, good technique, but his opposition has been very, very limited. Bohachuck is from Bohachuck is from, I think he's Ukrainian, that they're just made of something different. The Russians, whether they're Kazakhs or Russians or Ukrainians, they're all just tough as nails. So it'll be a big test for Ortiz. Can he hurt Bohachuck? Because if he can't, Bohachuck can fight outside of that. I think skill-wise, I would probably back Bohachuck as far as his tools go, but be interesting to see how Ortiz reacts if he can't get Bohachuck out of there, especially early. So, yeah, it should be a great fight, Asbot. G'day, Tommy. How you going, mate? Very good, thank you. What do you got there for us? Did you catch Boots Ennis's performance? What did you think? And do you see a possible Conor Benn, Stanionis, or maybe a Blair Cobbs, who is from Philadelphia, like Boots? I know he's a bit of a cramp there. I know he's calling out Terence Crawford, Tommy, but I think unless that fight is at 154, I think you could probably forgive Terence Crawford for saying, yeah, look, I'm done with the 147-pound division. Some big fights at 154. I'm not a massive advocate for Crawford having the fight Boots. Boots Ennis has got to, I think he has to prove himself a lot. Not that Madrimov probably has either, but if it's not Crawford and Boots, yeah, I would probably say Conor Benn, Tommy. Although they might save that fight and maybe try and get him a Stanionis or Blair Cobbs to keep the train going, and Conor Benn might be the fight he gets if they can't make the Crawford fight. So who knows? Maybe we've got Ryan Garcia moving up. Maybe we've got Devin Haney moving up. Don't like Devin Haney's chances against someone like Boots Ennis because he was very impressive yesterday. Look, what I will say, Tommy, it was a pretty stock standard win, though, wasn't it? It wasn't like I watched the fight, and it wasn't like I was expecting Avanasian to actually have a chance at winning. I was more interested to see how Boots Ennis went. He'd been out of the ring for a year, and how he went as the champion. And look, he did everything he had to do, but I wasn't overly excited, Tommy. Let's just say I'm not going to go back and watch the replay anyway. So I like that. Stanionis or Blair Cobbs does make a lot of sense, and maybe Conor Benn down the track. But I've just got a feeling, unless he goes to 154 and puts himself in the mix of that very clogged up division, I don't really see that fight with Crawford going. And look, and if you're Crawford, let's face it, I know, again, as fight fans, we all want to see that fight, but Crawford, he's only got probably a year or two left. Is it the Spence rematch? Is it if Fundora wins, is it a Fundora match? Does he look at Tim Tszyu as being more beatable and more marketable than Boots Ennis? Is there Ortiz or Bohachuck? There's a lot of options in there, and with all due respect to Boots, yes, he's a very, very good fighter, but he just, in my opinion, not as marketable as some of those other guys there that he could fight. And at this stage of Crawford's career, of course, he wants that Canelo fight as well as his legacy fight or another legacy fight. It's all about the money, and while as fight fans we want to see the Boots Ennis and Crawford fight, if you're in Crawford's camp, you can't sort of give him the same, I suppose, attitude or feedback that we're giving Canelo for the Benavidez situation. I just don't blame Crawford if he sees Boots. It's just not very marketable and attractive fight. Would be a great fight, don't get me wrong, but I completely understand your Crawford says, no, I'm going to go for Spence, Fundora, Tszyu, Ortiz, these types of guys over, or Canelo, of course, or Boots Ennis. So, I was waiting for this one, Tommy. Did you see my video about this one? I just quickly did it on Saturday morning. Janibek, Ala Kanuli, let's just call him Janibek, or Janibek, whatever you want to call him, fainting and being rushed to the hospital, trying to cut the last few pounds. Doesn't sound good. It's probably time to look at 168. Well, Tommy, if you didn't see my video, let me just sum it up. Yes, it's time he went to 168. And looking back, I did watch the video back after I put it up, and to be honest with you, I probably didn't convey how pissed off I was at the situation. It's just ridiculous that Janibek he's chosen to fight at 160. He's chosen to sign the contract. He's chosen to go to Las Vegas. He's chosen to go through the process, and then he goes for the weight cut and faints. And look, I got a lot of comments back about it, mostly agreeing with me, but there were a few that didn't, and that's fine. Actually, I think there was one that said I'd probably been a little bit hypocritical because, well, not along those exact words, but I had said in the past, well, if you can make weight, then you should be able to fight at any division. Because in the video, what I did say is that this is bullshit. It shouldn't be happening. Maybe there's got to be some scientific tests of boxers that gives them the weight divisions they're safest to fight in, and they can only sort of go up from there. They can't go down. But I have changed my tune, and this one on Saturday when it happened really did change my point of view, because all I could think about was Mikhailovich, who had done nothing wrong, had done everything asked for him, done everything in good faith, probably put up a lot of money for his training camp and his team and everything else. And Janibek just gets to walk away and said, oh, sorry, I fainted, can't make the weight. I'm going to take my belts and maybe I'll give you another shot down the track or whatever it might be. That's my point. I had a few people saying, well, you can't expect him to give up his belts. Well, why? He can just walk. He can do this to a young guy and just walk away with his belts. Now, I'm not saying you got to give them to Mikhailovich, by the way, but I think I said again in the video, Mikhailovic's next fight should 100% be for the belt, either one or both of those belts against the next available rated opponent, and Janibek should forfeit the belt. Just as simple as that. I hope he's okay physically and everything else, but look, he signed the contract. He chose to fight at 160. He didn't make it. And I know normally in some situations they don't make weight, they fight anyway, but the belt's on the line for whoever doesn't make. I get all that. But in this situation, self-inflicted, 100% self-inflicted. Didn't make weight, or didn't even make it to the scales. And yes, again, I hope he's okay. He's rushed to the hospital. But while I hope he's okay, the belt should be vacated and Mikhailovic should fight for the belt. Now, I know the scientific thing might not happen, probably won't happen, but I'm hoping it does happen in this day and age with everything else going on. All the organisations all over the world in different sports are all looking at different ways to make their sport safer. I just hope that maybe a compromise or maybe a condition is if you're someone like Janibek and this happens, then from now on you have to get a medical or physical, whatever it might be, and they determine whether you are safe to make the weight. And if they say, look, let's say Janibek decides, well, I didn't make the weight this time, but I'll make it next time. No. In this situation, he should be able to, or have to have some tests, or whatever, I don't even know how they do it, to say, no, anything below the 168-pound limit is a danger to you. So we're not going to allow you to even attempt to make 160. That's what might be the compromise that comes in. But either way, I just feel for Mikhailovic. I really do. Geez, I've been there when I was fighting just as amateurs, when you get a fight cancelled. And that's not without a 12-week camp and flying the other side of the world and all the expenses involved. It's just wrong. It really is. I know some of you will disagree, and that's fine. Put it in the chat. What's that? It's hard to please boxing fans sometimes. Not sure what that one is there, mate, but you're right. Still with Tommy. Sorry, guys, I'm a little bit behind. I'll rush through a few comments. You could tell Boots had no respect for David Avanesian's punching power. Fans get mad with Shakur, lack of excitement, but we got that with Boots, and now people saying he was exposed, getting hit too much. I thought, Tommy, again, it was a workmanlike performance from Boots, and that was about it. I want to see him fight I want to see him fight some half-decent opponents at the weight, but really, who's there? Conor Benn, and I think Conor Benn's limited as well. He's probably the only one I would actually be excited for Boots to fight, unless Garcia or Haney or someone like that went up, or Lopez, Teo I'm talking about. He just needs to step up. He's just like fighting once a year. Well, okay, if it's like a Tank Davis who actually fights legitimate fighters, or Crawford, okay, whatever turns you on. But he has a year off and fights David Avanesian in a defence. And Avanesian, I mean, he'll put you to sleep by fighting, not with his hands. So, yeah, look, again, a routine win by Boots, Tommy, but certainly didn't get me excited for any big fights going forward. Big J, T Street was at the Boots fight. This is T Street controversy. I think you said it's called Big J. I was at the Boots fight and asked Eddie about Parro versus George with Skye as co-main in Oz. Eddie replied, a very real possibility, if not preference, for his next Australian event. Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't say before, actually, Big J, on the George and Liam fight, the prospect of the fight. It's only big in Australia, so it'd be interesting to see how it's perceived internationally. I think it makes a lot of sense here in Australia, but it's not a massive fight outside of Australia. So I suppose Eddie's probably just thinking, well, kills two birds with one stone. He gives Liam a very winnable first-up defence, but also puts it in Australia and makes a lot of money out of it. The crowd will be massive. The pay-per-views will be ultra-massive. And poor old Liam Wilson last week, and I'm sure we'll get to that card as we go. I'm sure someone will mention it, is now suddenly going to be left out in the cold. And look, if I'm being completely honest on last week's fight too, again, I know we'll get to it, Liam Wilson's performance, I don't think it justified a fight. And I'm a big fan of Liam. I don't know, Benny watches this show. His trainer watches this show sometimes. But I don't think it was convincing enough for me, even though the knockout was great, for George Kambosos to be thinking, yeah, I think we can sell this fight. Well, obviously he's looking at Liam now. But, yeah, I still had a few concerns about a couple of, with Liam's, maybe his defence and a few other bits and pieces. But Benny, if you're in there, mate, join in the chat and let us know what your thoughts of the fight. I'd be happy to discuss and have people's comments. But yeah, I just didn't think it was overly convincing, Liam's performance. And maybe he was just trying a few different things from camp, and maybe got a little bit sort of mixed up, or they didn't maybe quite work. I just think he's better than that. I think he's better. Even though it was his first fight at lightweight, I just think Liam's capable of a lot more than what he showed last week, even though it was a great knockout. And I'm sure No Limit and Main Event will be using that highlight footage for quite some time. It might actually go past the footage that was actually from my show when he knocked out, was it Quadros? What a left hook that was. Wow. All right, we'll move on. Mutsy. Sorry, guys, I'll keep moving a little bit quicker. Don't waste our time on Hall versus Scott or the No Limit card. For that reason, bigger things to discuss. Plus, what's the name of the young lass going for the WBA 170-pound title on Wednesday? Is it Wednesday, Big J? I think it's on the weekend, mate, on Saturday. It is... Actually, I've got it up there. Hang on. No, maybe I haven't. I'll bring it up. Hang on. Is it Skye Nicholson? I think her name is. That's how well I'm going. When I can't remember who it was. Where are we? Premier. No, it is Premier Boxing. Let's have a look. July 20th it is. So Saturday night. Let's have a look at the card. So we've got Jalen Tate and Ibrahim Bala. There it is. Keneally and Rocha fighting for the WBA World Light Heavyweight Female title. So, yeah, that's should be a good one. I'll just quickly, while we're going there, guys, I'll just bring up the event just so we know who's fighting. Should be a really good card, actually. Schedule. All right. Australia. Let's have a look. I just said I'm going to keep moving, and here I am. All right. So we've got Ibi Bala, Jalen Tate for the IBF Australasian lightweight title. Skye Nicholson, Angie Paola Rocha for the WBA title. We've got Kira Rustin, Paulo Ratu Macaro, Joshua Nantes, Cody Beacon, Dylan Biggs. Good to see him back against Marcus Hayward, and Rocky Ogden, Cheng Yang. Should be a great fight as well. So that's this Saturday, Southport Sharks. And Hall versus Scott. I think I had my say on that during the live watch-along. Big J, absolutely embarrassing, disgusting. Everyone involved should hang their heads that they let that fight go on. Anyway, it's good in hindsight, isn't it? Skye didn't have to get out of second gear. Did you even get in second gear, Mutsy? I thought it was first gear, to be honest, or neutral. I wasn't a fan of the being a smart ass toward the end. Is that just me? No. Yeah. Look. If she's winning against Amanda Serrano and does that, Mutsy, well, okay, good on her, I suppose. But to do that against a clearly overmatched opponent, I mean, she was a shocker. She looked the part at the weigh-in, and the record was semi-impressive. I know we've been over that a few times in the last couple of weeks. But, geez, she, as I said before, I won't spend too much time, but she really needs to step up the competition. G'day, Batman. How you going there, mate? Tim Tszyu, no, mate. As I said, it should be any old day. That's all I'll say. There's Sam. Hey, mate. As much as Skye cops it for her style, she showed signs of starting to actually use her backhand. Yeah, well, that's one thing I'll say, Sam. She did actually plant her feet a couple of times and let a few bombs go. So that's probably one thing I'll give her, because normally she doesn't engage at all. It's the jab. She'll draw her opponent in. She might throw a check hook or a left hand or a backhand, whatever you want to call it, and spin off to the side, and then it's just repeat. And I must admit, I still can't believe, which is probably an indication she probably hasn't fought anyone even remotely resembling a real world-class fighter so far. Well, probably maybe one or two, but is that no one has picked up the style. It's the jab, the hook, and then it's a pivot off to the right every single time. You think that maybe at some stage one of the trainers look at the footage and go, geez, maybe what would happen if maybe we cut her off and maybe move to her left, so she's moving the unnatural way for a southpaw. Because at the moment they just let her go to the right, spin off to the right, pivot off to the right, and it's just the same old, same old, same old. And again, full credit to Skye. She's making it look easy, but she's the level of competition so far, geez, wow. Big J, Sharon Anyos was the first WBC featherweight champ back in the 90s. Yep, I did a few rounds with Sharon back in the day. She puts them together all right. Let me just say that. Had several successful defences of the title. One of the 4 queens of Oz boxing. I do agree there, mate. She what was her nickname? The Wild Thing, and Hall of Fame member now as well. So yeah, Sharon, good on her. She was a warrior, that's for sure. She smashed it in my opinion, and Philly loved her. That's normally a rabid crowd, and to do that as an out boxer is impressive. Yeah, okay, yep. Maybe you're right there, Kyle. They did. No, I was just going to say they walked out on Shakur, but that was Newark, wasn't it? New Jersey. I think they might like Skye, her appearance rather than her fighting style. But look, hey, if she's over there earning good money and getting on the big stage of all these events, then good on her. Good on her. Sam says if she gets out of the phone booth, in the phone booth, someone who gives her no other options, I actually think she might let the dog out. Well, you never know, Sam. Yeah, well, I'd like to see it. Yeah, look, again, I'll say with Skye, look, I have been critical of her opponents and the fighting style, but at the end of the day, it's about winning, isn't it? And that's what she's doing. So good on her. She's winning the fights. I must admit, I probably wouldn't pay to see her fight, but she's getting on the big card. She's doing her things, and more importantly, she's representing Australia and doing it proudly and doing it well. So good luck to her as an Australian. I must admit, still, I'd like to see maybe Shannon O'Connell get another win or so under her belt, and then maybe we have the all-female fight. Maybe, hey, who was saying before, maybe that is the fight on the undercard of Parro and Kambosos. How good would that be? A mammoth Aussie female fight as well. And I know Ebony beats Shannon. Don't come at me with that. I understand that. But you talk about a grudge fight. These two have been just frosty with each other for a long, long time. So maybe that's the fight. Maybe it's Parro and Kambosos as the main. Maybe we have Skye and Shannon as the co-main. What a fight that would be. Or maybe Shanika Johnson moves up and fights Skye. I know they're buddies as well, but talk about a real grudge fight. Shannon O'Connell and Skye Nicholson. Whew, that would have fireworks, no doubt. And I know Ebony beat Shannon. I get that. But whatever. Get another fight under her belt, and then that would be great to do at the end of the year. Queenslanders, get it on. Let's do it. Matty, tough test next up for Alex Winwood. Yes, he is fighting. I've got it written here. I'm going to have to read it out. What is it? It's Thamanoon Neom Trong. 24-0, 9 knockouts for the WBA minimum weight titles. It's 105 pounds or 47.7 kilograms. September 7th, HBF Stadium in Perth. So, look, what a opportunity for Alex Winwood, Mutsy, to become the fastest ever Aussie to a world title. Of course, Jeff Fennick did it, I think, in his 7th fight. Alex Winwood could do it in his 5th fight. So, look, he's a great guy. I've seen him here a few times. We've spent a bit of time with him in Stockton last year. Great young. Is he young? He's youngish, younger than me. Great young fella. Puts in the work. Great team behind him. So, all the best to Alex Winwood. And got to be in it to win it, Mutsy. Let's hope he can get that belt. All right, Asbot. Parro wins. I like George, but it's hard to see him winning anything. Yeah, he just hasn't been himself since a Lopez fight. Now, I understand the level of competition went from 1 to 100 pretty quick. I know he beat Lee Selby and Mickey Bay. I understand that, but they're probably towards the end of their careers, let's face it. Good wins. But since the Lopez fight, he has been very unconvincing. But look at the competition. Devin Haney twice and Lomachenko. And I just think Maxie Hughes was just all wrong for him. Liam Parro, it's going to be tough. Another southpaw. We know he doesn't fight that well against southpaws. Look, if I'm going to say right here and now, Asbot, who would I pick? I would pick Liam Parro. But I love the fight. I'm a massive fan of George. I think it'll be a great build-up, great atmosphere. And yes, George could win. I just think he's just struggled at the level, hasn't he, since Teofimo Lopez? And I just think Liam Parro, if he can replicate what he did against Matias, I think Parro wins that fight. But it's one of those fights. I wouldn't care who wins or loses. I just want to see the fight. It would be fantastic. There's Achilles in the chat away there, mate. We'll keep moving. Ryan Johnson says, what a waste of money last week's pay-per-view. Love Hall was an AFL player, but at 48, I think he's 47 actually, Ryan, but close enough. Should not have been sanctioned that fight. Looks like he took a bigger dive than Jack Ginnivan. Obviously an AFL fan, mate. Look, I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, and I'm going to say I don't think it was a dive. I know it's been likened to the Lucas Brown Paul Gallen fight. I would definitely have doubts about the Lucas Brown one. I simply just still can't get my head around the fact that Paul Gallen, as tough as Lucas Brown is and experienced and everything that he was back then, that Paul Gallen could do that to him inside of a round. But anyway, that's for another time, and I don't want to talk about that stuff, and we don't have ironclad facts. But in this fight, I think what happened, Ryan, I think in his mind, he thought he was prepared, he thought he was ready, and then as soon as the bell went, he had a young guy who's by no means any world beater. Let's get that out there as well. But I just think he had a young guy who just took it to him straight away. He was faster, the power, and he just went at him right from the word go. And I just think after a few of those heavy punches, especially when he went down, even though he didn't get hit those first couple of times, he was sort of pushed down, thrown down, however you want to say it. And I just think especially when he wore a couple on the ropes and when he did go down legitimately, I just think he thought, I'm done. I can't do this. I just think he knew right there and then, and probably did the smart thing by just probably giving the referee an indication that he wasn't willing to continue, and the referee did the right thing to wave it off. And I think that's what it was. I think all things aside, I just don't think Barry Hall's the type of guy that would, one, take a dive or whatever was given to him to take the dive. I just don't think that's Barry Hall. As I said, I just think that, and you don't get to that level, I don't think, being an AFL player or whatever it might be, by being that type of person. I just think he got in there and realised really quick that he didn't have it and was never going to win the fight, and just did what he had to do. And I won't say took the easy way out, but he took the easy way out, if that makes sense. So, not a good look, Ryan, considering the next day, all over the news, nothing about Sam Goodman, nothing about Liam Wilson. It was all about Barry Hall, and that's what we don't want. I know it's all about getting the event in the papers and on TV and on social media in the lead up to it, and if that was the case, it worked well. But surely at some stage, No Limit and whoever puts these type of fights on have to have some sort of responsibility for the sport. Okay, I'm happy you got a few extra pay-per-views. I'm happy you might have got a few extra people to the venue. That's great. But what look does that give to Australian boxing? And I'll say it again, embarrassing and disgusting. And I would hope that No Limit afterwards sat down. I'm sure they have a pre or post-fight meeting or a debrief, whatever you want to call it. And they said, guys, is this a model we want going forward? Because the amount of flack they copped on social media about it from people that they want to buy the fights, do they really want that attention that it got the next day? I don't think so. And at what point do we get a situation where we're not maybe as lucky as Barry Hall, just walking out there with a bruised ego and a blood nose, when it's a lot worse? And they're not the only ones. There was the fight night. Was it them again? Actually, it might have been. Maybe they are the only ones where Cameron Mooney fought the ex-Essendon player, and got knocked out badly. That was on the Melbourne show. Was that Joshua Parker? It might have been. And that was bad as well. Even though, again, just two footy players going for it. Again, just not a good look. And I'll say it again. I did say it again on with the social or whatever it was the other day. Might have actually been the weekly roundup. Just have a look at this fight, and then just go back and have a look at the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul situation. Mike Tyson looking great in training, best shape he's been in since he retired. Everything else, Barry Hall looked unbelievable for a 47-year-old. Said he'd been the best shape he's ever been in, and that's what happened. So just think twice. Everyone out there that's saying, yeah, Mike Tyson's going to smash Jake Paul. I've said all along, that's the fear I have for Mike Tyson. Let's hope that's not the case. But not a great look anyway, Ryan. All right, Achilles, disappointing weekend of boxing, in my opinion. I caught Boots versus Avanasian and Farmer versus Muratala. Well, wasn't impressed with any of those guys who fought. The Farmer and Muratala fight, Achilles, I ended up, again, just sort of just jumping on the net or jumping on my phone and, just being distracted from it. It was a disappointing day. And I must admit, I was watching the fights with a dropped lip or my lip on the ground, whatever, my bottom lip, because I was still pissed about the Janibek and Mikhailovich fight. That would have been dynamite for as long as it lasted. And it was just a disappointing day. I mean, hey, look, it's great we get a full day of boxing on DAZN and Fox or ESPN, whatever it is. But, geez, the fights, unlike the last few weeks, left a lot to be desired, didn't they? All right, so Achilles Boots is another weight bully with athletic gifts. Definitely not on the level of the great black American fighters who came before him. I do agree, Achilles. Who knows, maybe he will be. At this stage, the jury's out. G'day, Andy. How you going there, mate? Achilles, I believe Virgil Ortiz is good. I'm not sure about his physical ability anymore with the illnesses and injuries. Time will tell. Yes, it will be. The fight with Bohachuck will tell a lot, Achilles. 100% it will. And he says, I didn't catch any boxing this weekend. Was a groomsman at a wedding, then was travelling home and haven't caught replays yet. You didn't miss much, Andy. Just get on YouTube and watch the highlights, mate. Don't worry about watching the whole fights. Just watch the highlights. That should tell you all you need to know. Achilles agrees. Now, is that AI money or is that L money there? We'll call you AI money there, mate. Welcome to you. Batman, what's that there, mate? Boots look sharp. Did what was expected, though. That's what I said before, Batman. It certainly wasn't convincing. Certainly didn't think, oh, wow, this guy's maybe the next Crawford of the division, even though he probably will be, but he hasn't got anywhere near the level of competition that Crawford had. But he looks good. Let's hope he gets those fights, and let's see what he's got. But I'm not going to entertain. I know he's been talk about pound for pound and all this sort of stuff. Come on. Wait till he beats somebody. Achilles, Haney is a weight bully. Yep, good luck fighting a way bigger Boots. He gets smoked. I think so. I think if he goes to welterweight, Achilles, I think Boots Ennis beats him. But does that still tell you a lot? We saw that Ryan Garcia, with what he did with the power situation against Haney, I think Boots is a good, big, solid 147 pounder. I think he would, like you said there, smoke Haney, mate. But again, I still like to see it. Nick Bala, how you going there, mate? What do you think of the fight between Ibrahim Bala and Jalen Tate? Big fan of Ibby. Any relation there, Nick? Well, I used to promote Ibby Bala, Nick, back in the day. Promoted about 5 or 6 of his fights. Great family. Obviously, his brother Camille as well was a very good fighter. Actually got him the fight with George Kambosos in New Zealand. Didn't go that well for Camille, obviously, but it was a good experience for him. Look, I think... Look, Ibby was great in his last fight against Dib. Was that his last fight? I think it was. Yep. But I just think Jalen Tate, if I'm being honest, Nick, might just have enough tools to maybe get over Ibby. But again, Ibby's 2012 Olympian? Yes, he must be. 2012. So obviously a very, very good fighter. Jalen Tate looked a bit shaky in his last fight. So Ibby, you would say, would have a chance. But being in Queensland on Jalen Tate's home turf, I just think he might win that fight on points. But still, great Aussie matchup. And these sorts of fights are the exact fights we need on that platform. The exact fights. 2 Aussies against each other. Good fan bases. Can obviously fight both the guys. And I'll say it again. These are the fights we need. So No Limit. I know they have stepped it up a little bit with No Limit on Fox shows. These are the fights we need to see. Aussies versus Aussies. Rather than bringing in an import, save the money and give it to 2 Aussies to put on a fight. Because if they bring in, I don't know, it might be an Aussie against some Venezuelan or whatever it might be, hey, they might be able to fight and that's great. But I'd rather save the 20 grand it costs them extra to bring in the import, might sometimes more, might be 30K. Give it to 2 Aussies to fight here in Australia. Give them $15,000 extra as just that the icing on the cake or the cherry on top, whatever you want to call it, to get the fight done. And maybe then we'll see the Kamikayos in with the Hardmans and these type of. I'm just thinking that's just the first one I can think of. money's always been an object or, a roadblock in that situation. I'm just picking this fight as an example, by the way. But Hardman and Kambosos, it's always been about being serious about the money. Well, paying whatever they would normally get and then an extra 10 or 15K on top just to get it over the line. Or maybe give an extra 20 grand to the winner, whatever it might be. But this is the way you get the fights done. I was always guilty of it, which is why I never made any money on my promotions, because I always didn't mind paying the extra to get the fights done. So they're out there. Look at right through the divisions at the moment. And speaking of that, we've got Brock Jarvis, who even been mentioned as Isaac Hardman. Well, again, if that's the fight they're going to throw up, well, again, throw an extra 20 or 30K at it to get it done. That's a great fight. So interesting to see that Brock Jarvis, if that fight did happen, his last fight was at 140. The next fight could be at 160. So it's just amazing. I'm really interested to see how Brock goes. Who wins that fight? Again, I'm being completely honest. I'm just waiting for the comments. I know it sounds like a strange one, but I think Brock Jarvis wins that fight. Yes, I said Brock Jarvis. All right, Big J. If George fights Parro and wins, imagine how big a rematch unification with Lopez would be. Yeah, it would, mate. It would. Yep. And look, we've probably spoken about on here a couple of times where to for George at the moment. The big guys, even though, again, Shakur Stevenson allegedly put George's name out there that he wouldn't mind fighting George, I probably doubt that. But in my opinion, I would have thought that the real top guys would have put George on ice for the time being and probably thought, nah, he's not in the mix at the moment. George doesn't want to come back and fight in Australia against the likes of Liam Wilson I'm talking about. So where does he go? Well, this fight makes all the right sense, doesn't it, with Parro? And then if he does win that, you're right, then it puts him right back into the mix against the guys like Lopez. So, or maybe a Garcia, or probably not Garcia, but who knows? But look, it just changes the ball game completely. All right, Double G. The George Rose spin is beyond used car salesman. Jai Mac interview asks, what about Barry Hall? George replies, wow, Curtis Scott has some big power. What a puncher. Rose avoided mentioning Barry. Well, what I see during the week, the Instagram post that was on, and someone put the Don King hair on George Rose. That's where we're getting to. And I'll say again, I love what No Limit have done. Don't get me wrong. But as the old the saying goes, don't piss down the back of my leg and tell me it's raining. It's just be honest. And maybe what he should have said after that fight, Double G, is, look, it wasn't obviously the best performance from Barry. He looked good in training. He felt good. We were confident. He was confident that he put in a great show. It's a shame it didn't happen for Barry tonight. Hopefully that's the end for Barry. We wish him all the best going forward. Don't tell us this shit here about Curtis Scott. And that's probably the only thing they were concerned of. If they were concerned at all about Barry, that is, because he's out of the picture now. It would have been, wow, how do we spin this to make Curtis Scott our next sort of pay-per-view sort of draw? I don't care who he fights, Double G. I would not pay 1 cent to see Curtis Scott. One, because he doesn't look like he's a very good person. And two, just another hype job. Maybe we do get the Paul Gallen fight. I think Paul Gallen, if he's kept himself in good nick in the last couple of years, I think he would beat Curtis Scott. I think he'd be able to weather that early barrage from Scott and then have the tools and maybe the fitness to go with Scott a little bit later. Because let's face it, Curtis Scott, he's gone, 1-2 rounds in all his fights? We haven't even seen him in a proper fight yet, and how he handles it. Not against another footballer. So, yeah. But I'm with you there, Double G. The spin from George and everyone else, it's pretty laughable. Mutsy says, surely Mikhailovich gets some compensation dollars for having to cop that. I would think so, Mutsy. I think what should have happened is, and maybe it did happen, maybe Top Rank did pay Mikhailovich's purse. They haven't lost anything when you think about it. They still would have got the money from ESPN. The crowd still would have been there. I don't think they would have. People have already got the tickets. They would have, we're here now, we may as well just go. I don't think they would have lost anything like that. So what harm is there? And even if they did lose some sales, the fact they're not paying Janibek his purse, which could have been a couple, $200,000-$300,000, I don't know what it was. They're not going to lose anything by paying Mikhailovich what he probably would have got 100, 150 if he was lucky. So I don't see the harm in paying Mikhailovich from their end. But let's see the organisations or the governing bodies or whatever it might be. Let's see some action here. The guy just didn't make weight, and Mikhailovich is stranded over there with nothing. Just nothing. Anyway, I've gone on too much about that. Yes, Batman, 168 for Janibek for sure. If he goes back to 160, well, again, I should tell him that. You didn't make weight, so sorry, you're not fighting at 160. Anyway, we'll see. All right, g'day, Carl. Hope all is well with you too, mate. Did you catch Taszyu interview with Tim? Pretty good viewing. Okay, I watched a bit of it, Carl. That is Taszyu Brown's new podcast. It's called Ringside Seat with Taszyu Brown. Make sure you check it out. First interview we did was, or for his podcast, was Tim Tszyu. I think there's ones coming with Billy Dibb, Anthony Mundine, and Luke Jackson. I think there might have been one other. So, yeah, if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's called Ringside Seat with Taszyu Brown. So get on there and give it a look. It's on YouTube, and I think it's on Spotify as well there, Carl. So I caught about sort of 15 or 20 minutes of it, mate. And, yeah, good first up performance from Taszyu. Not a bad interview to start with, is it? Tim Tszyu. So let's hope they keep continuing. Andy, many didn't seem overly impressed with Boots. Still hope Boots unifies in maybe welterweight undisputed or 154. Bud is chasing bigger legacy and dollar fights. Would watch Boots versus Bud, but Bud is done at 147. I agree, Andy. That's what I said before. Even if, well, one, I think that Crawford's done with 147. So if it was going to happen, they would have to fight at 154. But again, I just think there's way bigger fights out there for Crawford at 154 or beyond than Boots Ennis. I just don't think we see that fight. And I don't think, again, he deserves to cop the abuse that Canelo's copping for the Benavidez situation. And even on the Canelo and Benavidez situation, I know it's not really in the topics tonight, but can you really blame Canelo for not wanting to fight or choosing not to fight Benavidez at this stage? The guy gets in the ring at about 200 pounds. Canelo probably gets in the ring at probably 180. It's a lot of weight, a lot of size to give away. Look, I know it's a business and everything else, and he's in the weight division, so he should fight him, but I can't blame Canelo for saying, well, if there's other options out there, do we really want to fight this massive unit? So, anyway, that's for another chat. Carl says, how long can Boots cut to 147? It blows me out how he makes the weight. He's a big 147, Carl. Will we get the same situation with him? Hopefully not, where he has a title fight lined up and doesn't make the weight either. So, look, I understand that, you know, with these weight bullies and they get their weight down. There's some fighters that actually do it very, very well. They cut a lot of weight, they can do it safely, and they do it right. And maybe Janibek's always done it correctly, and it was just one of those things. But there's others, I think at the end of the day, in one way or another, it comes back to bite you. I mean, look at someone like Devin Haney. Even at 140, massive weight bully, and I know Garcia came in 3 pounds over and all the rest of it, but it just showed he was very susceptible to Garcia's punches, and maybe the weight was the issue. So, I don't know, but I know we can probably debate it all day, but I just don't see the sense sometimes. I do understand you probably got to drop 10 to 50 or sometimes more, 15 pounds, whatever it is on a normal weight cut. But some of these guys cut 30 to 35, sometimes 40 pounds. It's a lot of weight. It is ridiculous to do that and then try and expect your body to perform at its optimum level. It just doesn't make sense. And boxing's nowhere near as bad as UFC. You see some of those fighters with what they go through. It just doesn't make sense. Although I'm not a big UFC guy. I don't know the weight divisions, but I've got a feeling, correct me if I'm wrong, that the weight divisions are a little bit wider apart than boxing. Boxing seems to have that in-between division all the time. I don't think UFC have that. So maybe they've got no choice because they've either got to try and get down or they're going in there fighting guys that could be 25 pounds heavier than them on fight night. So, Tommy, what's that there, mate? Not only that, Carl, but Boots is on the IBF 10-pound rehydration clause. No way he can't keep doing that to his body. Yeah, well, as I said, maybe he'll come a cropper at one stage or at some stage as well. Let's go Jalen. Yeah, it should be a good fight. It's the Jalen Tate with Ibby Bella. G'day, Glenn. Evening all. Boots was fine. Just wanted to fight and put on a show against a very game opponent. Again, Glenn, like Skye, just did everything he was supposed to do, so no issues there. just don't expect me to get too excited about it. That's all. I've got no criticism about the performance itself. Did everything he was supposed to do. I just didn't get excited, Glenn. I think he's a great fighter, don't get me wrong, or a very, very good fighter. Let's see if he's great down the track when he does decide to fight some of those top guys. But he just a workmanlike performance for me. Did what he had to do, came out with basically no damage whatsoever. Let's just hope he gets back in the ring within maybe 5 or 6 months. This whole 12-month thing, I don't understand why these guys just waste their career. I understand the paydays are a lot more than what they used to be back in the day, back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, wherever it might be. The elite fighters would fight 3, sometimes even 4 times a year. I understand it's once or twice a year, but, geez, you're just wasting your prime. And Boots Ennis, such a talent. Tank Davis, such a talent. Why are you fighting once a year? I understand Crawford, Lomachenko, these types of guys. They're in the mid, 35, 36, 37, whatever it might be. I get with those guys. I only want the biggest fights, and they've been around long enough that one fight a year is enough. One fight per year is enough. And they're looking for the best fight for the most money. That I can understand. But someone like Boots and Tank Davis, I just don't get it. Bill, how you going there, mate? Bill Hack. I would think Barry Hall had sparring to know where he was at as a fighter. Also, his coach should have known not to put him in. Well, we don't really know what happened during training camp, Bill. Maybe he was his sparring partners were selected that they weren't really going to inflict too much damage on Barry, maybe not get him out of his comfort zone too much. No, they're just for timing and fitness and all the rest of it, and range and whatever it might be. And maybe none of them actually really put it on Barry. And look, I'll admit, I saw him on pads and thought, okay, he looks capable. But I hadn't seen him spar. Certainly hadn't seen him in a situation that he was in the ring, of course. And Curtis Scott just went... I think I did say in the preview of the event too that I wasn't quite sure. And I thought if they boxed each other, you would think that Barry Hall would have the boxing skills, but he didn't even get an opportunity. Curtis Scott, just straight out of the blocks, just put it on him. And as I said earlier, I just think Barry very quickly realised that maybe this was a bad decision, and maybe I'll just take the opportunity to have the referee say, Barry, I think that's enough. And that's not saying he took a dive or anything like that. That's just him saying or realising very, very quickly that I've made the wrong decision, and I think I'll take this opportunity to get out. And good decision in the end. You wouldn't want to see him get more hurt. Barry Hall capitulated after the first glancing jab hit him. It was pretty poor. Yeah, I was staggered how easily, Glenn. That's I'll say everything aside from what I've just said then, is that I was very surprised at how easily he, like you say there, capitulated. Just the first, soon as the bell went, you look at the live watch along, soon as the first exchange happened, I was like, oh, yeah, this is not going to be a long fight. And I was really surprised at how little durability, or whatever you might want to call it, ability to take any damage whatsoever. And he went down twice by not really anything at all. It was just really the barrage from Curtis Scott. But you can see the look on Barry Hall's face when he got up, even when it wasn't a punch and he was pushed down or thrown down, whatever it might have been. He didn't want to be there from that very first time he took a knee. Did not want to be there. As soon as he looked, the look on his face, I could tell straight away, and I've seen it a million times with fighters, he made the decision right there and then. He didn't want to be there. And again, I'm not saying he took a dive, but I think the penny dropped right there and then in the first 20 seconds of the fight. Oops, I've stuffed up. This was a really poor decision. But by then it's too late. It's too late. And then when you look at that last knockdown, he pretty much turned away to go down. It wasn't like he was knocked down with the actual punches. Yes, the barrage came, but he was under the barrage that Scott was throwing at him, and he did turn away, went down. I think the referee and Barry pretty much locked eyes, and it was a mutual decision to say, I think that's enough, Barry. And Barry's like, yes, I think you might be right. So anyway, a sad way for him to go out. And I was really, one thing I will say, that I was happy with his post the next day on Instagram. it would have been easy for him to be just shattered by it. I mean, this is a guy who's always had an aura about him as far as his, his physique, power, or whatever it might be. Big Bad Busting Barry was his nickname, of course. And I think you could tell he's had the mental health help over the journey. I know he'd been seeing a psychologist leading up to the fight, and it was the exact right thing. Rather get on there and apologise to everyone and, head down, pretty much apologise to the viewing audience who probably didn't give a shit about him and his family and his kids and everything else, to actually stand up and puff the chest out and say, okay, bad decision, bad call, I get that, but I'm still proud of myself for what I did during training camp, and proud of what I've done through my career, whether it be football or boxing. I think that's the right call, and now he'll be able to get on with his life and live with himself, no problems. The minute you start apologising to yourself and to people that, again, don't really care, I just think you live the rest of your life with those that in your guts. And I think the way he handled it on social media was great. That he can, as embarrassing as it might have been for him, just to move on and get on with it. All right, Tommy. Turkey wants Bud versus Boots at 154, but do you think Bud would want that or to keep chasing Undisputed at 154? It's a shame for Bud in a perfect world. Canelo doesn't get Jamel and Bud gets Jamel for Undisputed. I would think, I did see that, Tommy, that Turkey LL Sheik wants Bud versus Boots, but I think he would want Bud versus Canelo a hell of a lot more. I would think, look, Turkey LL Sheik is just a classic boxing fan with probably billions of dollars behind him. That's all he is in a nutshell, really. And I think I would love to be in that position to be able to go, you know what? That's the fight I want. I'm going to throw whatever money they want at it, and let's just get it done. And that would be a great position to be in. But I think it's great for him to put it out there, Tommy, but I would think you would have the team of Bud maybe explaining to Turkey that it's not a big fight in the scheme of things. There's much bigger fights at 154 or, of course, the biggest fish of all in Canelo. So I would think maybe after the conversations it might be, okay, well, let's just see how Bud looks at 154, and then we might see maybe Canelo, maybe it's either Crawford or Benavidez, and he says, well, shit, okay, well, if it's one or the other, I'm going to go for Crawford. So we get Bud and Canelo. Maybe it's Boots who might face a Tim Tszyu, or Ortiz and Bohachuck winner, or Spence and Fundora. You just don't know. But I just don't see Bud and Boots just making sense for Bud. I really don't. As a fight fan, I would love to see it, but it just doesn't make sense to me why Bud would want Boots, even at 154. If I was Bud, I would probably say to Boots, you go down there and you beat a Tim Tszyu, or you beat a Spence, or you beat a Fundora, or you beat an Ortiz, and then I'll have a look at you. It's a dangerous, dangerous fight for Bud. Why would he risk everything to fight Boots in what wouldn't be a big money fight, and wouldn't be for any belts at 154, at least not yet? It'd be for Bud's belt, but he would think, well, why am I defending my belt against him? This guy's just moving up from 147 when I've got the winner of Spence Fundora, or I've got Tim Tszyu, or I've got the winner of Ortiz and Bohachuck. So many options for him. So, yeah, I think those options, chasing Undisputed or Canelo, would make a hell of a lot more sense for Bud, Tommy, than Boots. But for me, again, Boots just makes no sense. And Skye was just fine. Yeah, she was, mate. As I said before, 100% respect to her. It just wasn't an exciting fight. Probably a little bit more exciting than a lot of her previous fights. But again, I want to see her test herself against some real elite opposition. And that girl on the weekend, Vargas, was far from it. So yes, she was fine. She boxed beautifully. She won every round. She's an Aussie, so yes. But I want to see her. I want to see her fight and beat the likes of Amanda Serrano, or what's her name, Tiara. What's her name? So some good fights out there for her. Let's see it. That's all I want. Sam, it's coming, mate. It'll be any old day, I think, for the news on Tim's fight. And he is in camp. He started his Thailand camp, so which means it's imminent, mate. So I think they got last Wednesday's fight night out the road. Then they had Nikita's announcement on the same night. So I would think they would maybe wait a week, and then that maybe it's Tim's fight. And Glenn Jennings has been pretty cryptic as well about what might be coming. So I will think, reading between the lines with what Glenn's saying, it could be any old day. And I think Noonan Boy might have put it on his page as well that fight news is imminent. So we'll just wait and see there, mate. All right, Tommy, Philadelphia crowd showed up for Boots. If I was Eddie Hearn, I'd continue to make fights there for Boots. And a few hours away, the USA president was almost assassinated. Crazy day in Pennsylvania. Certainly was, Tommy. Not a great day for the American people when it comes to that. When you've got, and again, whether you agree with whatever side it is, whether you're left or right, red or blue, Republican, Democrat, whatever it might be, it's just crazy to think that this is still where we're at, that we've got presidential candidates getting shot at in the crowd. And did you see it when he just happened to turn his head right at that split second and it went whizzing past his ear? Obviously, literally hit his ear. We could have, if he hadn't turned his head, we could have seen Donald Trump's head get exploded by on live TV. It just would have been just crazy. But I'm glad he's okay. Can't wait for November. Let's go, Donald Trump. And don't switch off the channel. But by the way, if you're a hater, I don't really care if you hate Trump, whatever it might be. I think we can all. Everyone just gets so butthurt these days. If someone says they hate Donald Trump, I say, okay, whatever, good on you. All right, everyone's got their own opinion. I'm not going to tell you you're whatever you are and unfollow you or whatever. So anyway, enough of the politics. Let's move on. All right, Carl. Geez, 47 kilos. I haven't weighed that since I was 7. Yeah, I think Carl, I reckon I was 47 kilos when I was about. I still wasn't that heavy. What was I? I would have been about 14, I reckon, when I was 47 kilos. Big J, Phoenix record before Winwood. Phoenix record before Winwood. Well, he was, I think, seven fights. I think Big J. Andy, prefer Parro. Looks to unify, in my opinion. Look to build his own legacy. They are friends, yeah, but Kambosos had his time in limelight. Let Parro have his. Maybe they can fight later. Now, I don't know. Maybe Liam's thinking, well, George mightn't be around too long. Big money Australian fight. Probably the more money he can fighting anyone apart from maybe Garcia, Haney, Lopez, these types of guys. So I think it makes sense, Andy. I don't think George necessarily deserves the world title fight, to be honest, but hey, bring it on. All those AFL players are all pansies, bunches. I was okay, Big Joe, whatever, mate. Okay. Barry tried, Barry failed. Footy fighters definitely shouldn't have more light than legitimate fighters, in my opinion. Not a fan of celebrity boxing, but definitely shows popularity, huge part in selling all. Yeah, look, on one hand, I don't blame promotional companies like No Limit doing it. It's all about for them. They're in a business to make money. I just don't like it. I don't like it. And surely, I've said it before, surely their product is good enough. They don't need to have these fights on the cards. Maybe worst case, they could have an all footy fight night, like I know they've done in the past. They did try an AFL one that never got off the ground because AFL fans just couldn't give a shit about this, to be honest. It's like, oh yeah, whatever. It's just like State of Origin and all that. We're a different breed with our AFL. We just love our footy. Don't want the crossover of whether it be State of Origin or these sort of fight things. I know the rugby league and rugby union fans maybe have a little bit different point of view, and they'll support the footy fights, and I know they definitely support the State of Origin. But yeah, if they're going to do it, maybe do standalone footy fight nights where if you want to watch that type of stuff, then go for it. If you don't, then you don't. I don't want to have that on the big cards. I don't want. Look, if the media want to rip those fights to shreds like they did with the Barry Hall fight the next day, do it on a circus act card, and that's fine. But don't put it on a legitimate fight card that just brings the whole event down. Because as I said, no mention of Sam Goodman or Liam Wilson the next day. Not a cracker. Nothing. All I heard all day on the radio, the SEN here in Melbourne, the Sports Network, and on the websites or the newspapers, was just Barry Hall and Curtis Scott. I just don't like seeing it. Tommy Bernard Hopkins won belts at, I believe, 48 and 49 years of age. It's crazy to think he had that much success at that age. Sounds like Pacquiao might really take on Barrios, and honestly, I think Manny can win. I think he can win too, Tommy. I'm not a rap for Barrios at all. I mean, he's okay, but I think if if Manny gets himself in anywhere near half decent condition, I think he can definitely win that fight. Having said that, is he like 43 or 44? I think Manny, is that right? I don't think he's that old, is he? Maybe I'm right. Maybe he might be a bit older. But Bernard Hopkins was just a freak, Tommy. Bit like George Foreman, just freaks. I know you do get one out of the box every now and then, but Bernard Hopkins didn't have a long layoff. He was active. He kept himself in unbelievable condition, and was always just in competitive fights and testing himself, and just a freak. Cole says, is it just me, or have top-ranked cards been pretty damn average this year, except for when they're in Japan? Look, I thought yesterday's would have been a good card if the Mikhailovich and Janibek fight had been on there, Cole. Would have been entertaining, but I suppose, having said that, if I didn't know who Mikhailovich was and hadn't seen him fight several times, I would have looked at that and went, you're joking, who is this guy? So I can understand the Americans over there maybe being a bit skeptical about the whole thing. They probably haven't been as good as previous years, Kyle, but sometimes it just doesn't happen, I suppose. It's just not the big fights to be made. And but overall, I think Top Rank's body of work has been fantastic. They've given us plenty of entertainment, I'll say that again, over the years, and I think they've got a few brownie points up their sleeves. Look forward to the Japanese cards. Rarely a bad fight on them, yeah. They're a little bit different though, aren't they, Mutty? They don't really know, a little bit like the Saudis over there, not quite sure when to applaud and everything else, the Japanese, and they're so very respectful though. But you're right, as far as the fights go, very, very rarely do you get a mismatch on those cards. So on with, I think it was Cole just then said, the Japanese cards have been pretty good. They definitely know how to put on a fight card over there, don't they? Carl says he's got Brock over Isaac. Yep. Yeah, I just think ability-wise, Carl, I know the size difference might be a little bit different, but at the moment, Brock just looks massive. He looks like he's a light heavyweight at the moment. So he's just let himself just grow into his natural body. So I actually think it'll be beneficial to him. Yes, Isaac can punch, but I just think Brock has got enough ability, and even now with the extra weight and strength that he's going to have, but I think he'll be able to avoid Isaac's punches, who haven't really had the same effect as the competition or level of his competition has gone up. So I just think Brock has enough ability to avoid the power of Isaac, and if it comes down to a fight between natural talent and ability and all the rest of it, I think Brock has Isaac covered. Love to see the fight though. Again, I'll say I'm a massive fan of Isaac, but I'm also a big fan of Brock, and I would love to see that fight. I'm really intrigued about it. Can Brock, who last fought at 140, go all the way up to 160 and fight someone like Isaac Harbin? I know they've got Nikita Tszyu in their sights as well, and I think that's a fascinating fight as well. So, yeah, but I'm with you, Carl. I think Brock wins that one. So hard to get a gauge on Teofimo Lopez. His performances at times are subpar. Definitely just fights to his opponent's capabilities, Carl, and that's a tough one. You sort of, you struggle against the lesser lights, and you look great against the elite fighters. But geez, you're always at risk, aren't you? If you don't quite get up one night, you can be upset. Can we expect you to be in Japan for the Goodman upset over Inoue? It's not April 1st yet, is it, Tommy? No, I wouldn't go to... actually, having said that, Tommy, I wouldn't mind going to Japan to see one of their fight nights. If maybe Jason Maloney or one of those, or maybe even Andrew Maloney gets over there for the Japanese fights, I'd love to go and have a look. But you never know. I don't know. It depends on when it is, Tommy. But I suppose if Sam was going to fight in a way over there, it might just be good to go and experience it. But yeah, it's not April 1st, is it, when you think Goodman upsets in a way? But again, we'll support the Aussie. Mutzi says, I love how Curtis said he'd fight anyone in Australia. Chuck him in with Brandon Grutch and see how he handles bullfighting. Yeah, Grutch. There's not much polish on him, is there? He's so raw. And, geez, you think he's just going to get overmatched. Like the first round against Malo, I thought, oh, geez, well, he's going to be exposed here. I think he got out of jail against Taliva because he was in all sorts of trouble in the first round and then knocked him out in the second round. But I thought Melee in the first round made him look very, very ordinary. And all of a sudden, it's just like he clicked into gear and found his way and just bang, 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 bang. I think he ended it in like 15 seconds. I thought Melee was boxing really, really well. And in the space of 15 to 20 seconds, the fight was over. So I'm a massive fan of Brendan Grash. And I think he absolutely takes Curtis. I was going to call him Curtis Stone there again. Curtis Scott apart. So Brandon Grutch by knockout for me over Curtis Scott. Any news on Jai's next opponent? No, he's gone pretty silent there, Axioman. I thought he might have been on the Saudi card later in the year, but it hasn't been really a lot said about him. I'm hoping they may be keeping him for the Usyk and Fury rematch, mate. But no, it's an interesting one. There hasn't really been any news about Jai at all, which is really surprising. So, no, mate, I've got no news on that, unfortunately. Tommy again. Just seen it with a UFC fighter, Alex Pereira, weighs in at 205 and rehydrated to almost 240. So so that's not heavyweight, Tommy. So I would think if you're 205 pounds, that is open, so you shouldn't have to waste or dehydrate yourself. So obviously there's another division that he's fighting at, and heavyweight's above that. But 35 pound. Now let me get my calculator out there. Is that about 16 kilos off the top of my head? Let's have a look. What'd you say? 35 pound. That is 16 kilos. There you go. 16 kilograms in a day. What's it say there? It's becoming less about the best skills winning and more about the art of rehydrating. Yep. Some do it well, some don't. Yeah, apart from the scientific approach, Tommy, I just don't see how we stamp it out. But one thing I will say, they should bring in, if you do not make weight, for whatever reason it might be, you cannot fight at that weight again going forward. You must fight at the next weight. So even Ryan Garcia, it should be, sorry, buddy, you weighed at 143, you missed weight, so you're now at 147 like it or lump it. I know, look, it probably won't happen, but we've got to have something to even things up. Now, I know there are sort of things in play at the moment, but are they really reinforced? I know, again, the WBC do 30 days, 14 days, 7 days, and all the rest of it. What was yesterday's fight for? The WBA and IBF. Well, maybe there's got to be a blanket rule across them all that maybe Janibek's got to be within what it might be. So the day before the weigh, maybe he's got to be within 5 or 6 pounds. So you're only dehydrating 5 or 6 pounds. What's that? 2-3 kilos, whatever it might be. So, but I said it again in the video that I did. He looked huge at the press conference, and Mikhailovich is a decent sized middleweight, but Janibek just made him look like he was a lightweight. And I remember thinking, geez, how does this guy make the weight? Well, there you go. The next day, he didn't make the weight. But that's bad, Tommy. I don't like to see that, mate. Tommy, I'm on the Goodman train. You've got a laughing emoji there, Tommy. But, hey, look, it was a workmanlike performance from him last week. I thought he boxed really well. Of course, he had I think it's been confirmed that it was broken or fractured or whatever it might have been. Actually, it might have been 2 fractures in his hand. Look, gutsy from Sam. Good performance from him. I just didn't like the way he took a lot of punishment from a solid guy, but I don't think really a top elite guy in the Thai. I just think he got hit way too much, and just imagine if, in a way, tees off on him like the Thai did, and there'll be no coming back from that. If he stands there and trades with Inouye, wow, I just think that's going to end badly. I think it ends badly anyway. Tommy, I wish Sam all the best of luck. I'm not trying to say I'm not hoping he wins. Being an Aussie, of course I do, but I just think that it's just got 2 or 3 rounds written all over it, just if I'm being honest here, mate. All right. Boots. There. Andy Boots had contractual problems. His promoter died and he was able to be released because that's exactly what they didn't deliver enough fights. Okay, let's hope going forward, Andy, that we see more of him. I like Sammy. That's Goodman, but he doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell of beating Inouye. Absolutely zero. I would think the snowball would have a little bit more chance of surviving, if I'm being honest, Carl. Now, it might be famous last words. Some of the biggest upsets in history have been in this exact situation. But even if I look at the best version of Sammy turning up against even a 50% in a way. I just can't see it. I just think Sam hasn't got the power to keep Inouye off. If Inouye doesn't respect you, especially if he doesn't respect your power, you're in for a big or a bad night. Even the guys that have power, he doesn't give them enough. And he did obviously get dropped in his last fight against Neary. But the fact that Sam is not the strongest type of guy, certainly doesn't punch hard, I just can't see him being able to keep Inouye off him for more than a few rounds. But you just never know. All right, we'll go through the comments there. Carl, does Boots end up like Demetrius Andrade, fights no bodies until there's nowhere to hide and then gets found out against high-level opposition? Could be the case. Carl, look, I personally think that Boots has got more talent than Andrade, but similar circumstances. You're right. Andrade finally got that fight against Benavides, and I think he did okay, but again was exposed sort of maybe not being as good a fighter as what we thought he was. But either way, Carl, again, I'll say it, I'm not going to really rate Boots in the scheme of whether it be pound for pound or whatever it might be until he fights a legacy type of fight. And when I say legacy, even a lower end legacy fight like an Ortiz, Tszyu, Fundora, Spence and these types of guys, Crawford will be definitely a legacy fight. Until he fights those guys, the jury's just out, that's all. All right, Billy Hack, how are you, mate, there? My opinion, Kambosos' counter-punching and speed too much for Parro. I respect both. Great to have an opposing view, Bill. I'm with you, though. Lots of respect for both. Love them both as Aussie world champions. I just want to see the fight as well. But again, if I had to pick one at this stage, I would be going with Liam. But either way, don't care who wins. I just want to see the fight. I think it'd be great for Aussie boxing. Really would. All right, Carl, since when does Bud have a 2-month turnaround from one fight to another? What fight are you talking about there, mate? What fight has he got after this one? He's obviously booked in August, August the 3rd, I think it is. Not sure he's got a fight scheduled. Or was there? Fill me in, Carl. I did see something about that, but if I've got it wrong, let me know. Still with Carl, I think Parro schools the pants off George. Considering he's been at 140 for a long time and George hasn't fought there yet, I think Liam's footwork gives George problems. I'm with you there, Carl. Tim could easily go 160 and take Lara or Adames as titles, but more action at 154. I think he could easily end up at 160. He did start at 160, Batman. He started his career at 160 here in Australia. Went back to 154 once he started to increase his level of opposition. Be interesting fight if he went up and did fight someone like Lara, wouldn't it? As good as Lara looked against Michael Zerafa, I think Tim Tszyu was obviously a totally different proposition. Tim's not going to get caught the way Michael Zerafa did, you wouldn't have thought. Adames wouldn't be a bad fight, but yeah, now you've said that, Batman, I wouldn't mind seeing Tim and Lara. And the other one I would like to see at 160 at some stage, if it changes the subject there, is Hazam Shiraz. Good fighter. I would like to see how he would go against Lara Adames or even Tim. Who knows? But I think Shiraz could be the next big name in that division. But good point there, Batman. I just want to see Tim in the ring again, says Carl. Feels like it's been forever. Well, it's only been 3 months, mate. So normally these guys fight twice a year. Even if he doesn't fight till like November or December, he's still had 2 fights in a year, which is more than Boots and Crawford and Tank and all these guys have had. Carl, politics and religion are 2 topics I don't touch. Well, I definitely don't do the religion, Carl. Can't win with that one. And politics, just a quick one on the politics. All I'll say with that is we've all got our own, not so much beliefs, but opinions. So I will say my policy is if I'm talking to people, when you get an idea of their political leaning, if I know they've got the same views as mine, then I'm happy to talk about it, maybe share opinions and views and all that sort of stuff. If they don't have the same opinions of me or even just a little bit different, a couple of different points, I just say no point. No point in even discussing it. We know how it's going to end up. It's going to end up in an argument. Whatever it might be, nothing they say is going to convince me otherwise of my opinions, and nothing I say is going to convince them. So why even have the argument? So that is my policy when it comes to talking politics. If they agree with everything I believe in, happy to talk about it. If they don't, then don't even try, because it only ends one way, and whether that's in person or online. It ends up just insults flying everywhere, maybe violence in some instances. Just doesn't make sense. So that's my policy, Carl, is just don't bother. And religion, well, I'm not a religious person, so I wouldn't even try and have a conversation with someone about that. All right, Carl, again, Danny Green and Anthony Mundine were popular, but I think Tim has a bigger reach. Yeah, I never thought I'd say that, Carl, that Tim would probably be the biggest name in Australian boxing probably since Jeff Fennick. Danny Green and Mundine, of course, at the time were massive. But Tim, he's just managed to cross over to a lot of... Look, maybe, actually, I'll stop myself there. Maybe, I won't say more popular. Now that I'm thinking back about it, I would say maybe just as popular as Danny Green and Anthony Mundine. I mean, I had people, back when Danny Green and Anthony Mundine were coming through, friends that had no interest in boxing at all, knew nothing about boxing, but they all knew Danny Green and Anthony Mundine. And when they fought, they would watch. So that shows the appeal of both these guys. But now Tim Tszyu's in that. So I think I'll backtrack a little bit there and say I don't think Tim's more popular than those guys, but just as popular. The difference is with these guys, with Danny and Anthony, they had each other at the same time. They were chalk and cheese, water and oil, whatever you might want to call it. And that's what the appeal was. Tim, to some lesser extent, has Michael Zerafa, I suppose, but of course they haven't fought. So, and I think Michael Zerafa is probably a poor man's version of Green or Mundine, but I think if Tim and Zerafa did fight, I think it'd still probably do big numbers, but nowhere near as much, I don't think, as Danny Green and Anthony Mundine. I think that back then, if we had all the technology and social media and everything we have these days, I mean, Green and Mundine, I think it still is the biggest pulling Australian fight of all time, and I think it would be untouchable if it took place today as far as the popularity. I mean, it was just massive back then. So, and before that, we had Barry Michael and Lester Ellis. Before that, a lot of you guys and girls out there probably wouldn't really remember. That was back in 1985. That was massive. Probably more so in Victoria, though. But just the spite involved. Wow, just a big fight. Good to see they're on good terms now, by the way. What's that, Andy? Did you ever promote any footy fighters on your shows? And if so, who? No, I didn't. Andy? No, I didn't promote any footy players. Not that I know of. No, I didn't promote any footy players. I think. No, I didn't. Manny Pacquiao will be 46 this December. Okay, thanks, Tommy. Pac-Man still beats Barrios easy, says Carl. I agree, mate. Jake Paul versus Mike Perry. That's this weekend. It is too. You could pick up some Jake Paul subscribers. Just remember they have school in the morning. Well, you're right, Tommy. I reckon if I did a live watch-along, I think I'll pay for it though, don't you? But if I did a live watch-along, I would no doubt I'd probably get an extra 500 subscribers, I would say. Or maybe not subscribers. I'd probably have 25,000 people watching it though. But I'd all be there. 24,900 of them will be there looking for a free live stream. But, yeah. I still wouldn't lower myself to paying for that fight, Tommy. I'm sorry. Who's Mike Perry? Oh, I've never heard of him. Is he on BoxRec? Who is he? Hang on. I'm going to have a quick look while we go. What is it? Is it Michael Perry or Mike Perry? Let's have a look. I've never heard of him. Mike Perry. Where are we? Okay, bad. I might put in Jake Paul. That's probably a bit easier to look him up. There's a lot of Michael Perrys or Mike Perrys in there. Is Jake Paul actually on BoxRec? Has he had a real fight yet? Let's have a look. Jake Paul. The problem child. Okay, 9-1. All right, Michael Perry. 0-1. All right. What a well beater he is. All right, quick look at the card. Amanda Serrano on there. That's good to see her back. She's fighting Stevie Morgan. I hope that's a girl or a female, Stevie Morgan. Anyone of note on the card? Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is on the card. Oh, my God. He's fighting a guy named Uriah Hall, 1-0, against Chavez, who's 53-6-1. All right. Well, that's enough of that. It's enough time spent on that. But Tommy, no, I don't care if I got 10,000 subscribers out of it. I'm not going to pay for that fight. I'm sorry. All right, Batman, I really want to go to an Inoue fight in Japan. Going to have to get it done. I'm with you there, Batman. What's it cost coming from England, Batman? I think from here might only be about $1,500 or $1,600 from Australia. So yeah, I'd love to go. I'm not going to go see him fight TJ Downey, I will say, Batman, but maybe I would go over and see Sammy fight Inoue. Take the Aussie flag over there. Hi, Lynden, how's the footy going? Next subject, Peter. I'm sure you can tell me all about it at the moment. There's no way Barry Hall was a good amateur fighter. Well, you're like me, Peter. Look, and if you don't know too much about Barry as his amateur career, all the thing in the build-up's always been, and even when he was playing footy, he was a great young amateur boxer, and he could have been this and could have been that, and even to the extent the day after the fight the other day when they were talking about it, and they said, well, you know what, though, even though he got knocked out, he's been knocked out in the first round in his last two fights, apparently he could have been anything as a junior, this and that. Look, let's put the record straight. I'm only just saying it how it is, by the way. Again, I respect all fighters. But Barry Hall, I think he fought in the league when he first started, which is the breakaway group. Probably fought in a couple of footy halls or whatever it might be. I think he had a handful of fights as a kid. Not as an adult, as a kid. Probably as a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid. And apparently showed a little bit. Now that is enough to say that he could have been anything in boxing. Well, if that's the case, I've probably seen 1,000 fighters that could have been anything. But, hey, it makes a good storyline. And what they say, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So, gives them something to talk about, Peter. But you obviously said the humour in it, just like I do. All right, Batman, there's no doubt Inoue sleeps what's that? Who's that there? Hom, regardless of game plan. Is that TJ or is that Sam? Sam, I'm assuming you're saying there. No doubt Inoue sleeps Sam regardless of game plan. Yep, I'm with you. Classic case, Batman, of the old Mike Tyson quote, everyone has a plan and they get punched in the face. And I would think Sam will go in there with a good plan. He'll box well for a little bit. In a way, you would think he'd probably have a look at him for 1 or 2 rounds, and then as soon as he wants to lower the boom, we could be in trouble. It sort of reminds me a little bit. I've just got in my head of the first Ivan Drago and Apollo Creed fight in Las Vegas when Apollo looked good for half a round, and then it was lower the hammer, and that was all for poor old Apollo. Anyway, at least his son got revenge. All right, Bill. I think same-day weigh-in will fix the weight bullies, and if they want energy, they won't cut too much. Really good point, Bill. I know they went away from that back, I'm not sure exactly how long ago. They did go away from the same-day weigh-in because people were, obviously, or fighters were dehydrating too much and everything else. Maybe they go back to that. It's a great point, Bill. Maybe they go back to same-day weigh-ins, and that stops this situation here, where you've got the Haney's and Garcias and Janibeks of the world draining 30, 35 pounds off their frame and just putting themselves at risk. And they've got to do same-day weigh-ins. I like it. I don't mind it, Bill. It might be a nice, easy way to fix the problem. All right, Tommy, if Bud beats Israel impressively to become a 4-division champ, would you move him up to 1 or 2 in your pound-for-pound rankings? No, I don't think if Bud beats Israel, he goes above Usyk or Inoue, Tommy. Doesn't matter how impressively he beats Israel. Again, unproven. Good amateur. He's had 10 or 11 fights, whatever he's had. Unproven. So I'll be impressed with Bud, but certainly wouldn't impact my opinion on where he is. I've got him at number 3, and I don't think no matter what happens, he beats or goes past Inoue or Usyk. Peter, 147 is nothing there, and the Ennis fans are getting carried away with themselves, and Tszyu would own him. I agree. I wouldn't say he owns him, Peter. Good point there, though. I think Ennis and Tszyu would be a really, really good fight. Of course, I'm going to back Tim Tszyu to win, but we just need to see those fights. We just haven't seen anything from Ennis so far. So I want to see him call out the big names. If they won't either go up to 147 or come down to 147, he needs to go up. Forget about 140. If there's no Haney or Garcia or coming up, or Teofimo Lopez, and the big names are at 154, then Boots Ennis, you're big enough and talented enough to go up to 154, go up and let's see what you got. Batman says, I think Eddie being a good promoter will definitely help Boots, who can be an exciting fighter, especially if they can get some good opponents. Probably same as Shakur Stevenson, Batman. So probably same boat. I'm assuming that he's going with Matchroom. Well, that seems to be the word at the moment. This is Shakur Stevenson. So yeah, I like it. And look, Eddie gets a lot of hate, but at the end of the day, he's the classic showman, great promoter, and all the fighters that he looks after all get the opportunities and well paid and everything else. So good call with Boots and, yeah, Shakur as well, if that's the case. All right, Andy. People were on Haney's case for blowing up 20-plus pounds for the Prograis fight, saying they're supposed to be 15 to 18 pounds WBC hydration limit. If so, those same rules should be mandatory everywhere for consistency. That's what we're after, Andy, is consistency. And maybe some more stricter rules, like Bill just said then. Maybe it is same-day weighing. Yep, I don't mind the same-day weighing. Well, you should have plenty of time. If they did it at like 8 o'clock in the morning, you got plenty of time to, unless you've absolutely killed yourself, like obviously what's happening at the moment with certain fighters, then you shouldn't have anything to worry about. If you're losing, well, I'm just, again, I don't want to keep inserting myself into it, but when I was fighting, I fought at 147, so, well, I'll go at pounds anyway, because that's what most people go by. I fought at 147. I would walk around normally at, I'm just looking, about 158, maybe 160, and then I would gradually come down to about 154 the week of the fight, so 3 kilos over, and then I would be within 3 pound or 1.5 kilos the day before the fight, and then I would lose that weight in the sauna or whatever it is the night before and get up on weight. I'd go to bed at weight, on weight actually, and get up the next morning, no drama. Now, I felt a little bit off when I first got up. As soon as I drunk something and ate something, I was fine because my body wasn't just being wrung out. Yes, it was hard to get down that last bit, but when I rehydrated, I did it naturally, and that's the way I should do it. If I was losing 15 kilos or 15 or 30 pounds, I'm not saying they do that the week of the fight, but coming down, they still might lose, 10 pound the day before the weigh-in, 10 or 11 pounds, so 5 kilos the day before the weigh-in, sometimes more. That cannot be good for you. So I think same day weigh-in, 8 o'clock in the morning, if you do it right, then you should be able to rehydrate, no problems. And again, with that, Andy, as well, the rehydration, 15 to 18 pounds. Yeah, well, the problem is, though, of course, all the sanctioning bodies have different clauses or conditions in the fight. So I think maybe that's the next thing, Andy. Maybe they have to have some sort of get together meeting, whatever you might want to call it, a convention or whatever you might want to call it. All the sanctioning bodies get together and work out a universal system, and they all stick by it. So we do get that consistency. Batman says Parro beats Kambosos, no doubt. Yes, Carl agrees with consistency. Batman, Hamza is huge for 160 and has some serious power from range. He's a good fighter, Batman. Really good fighter. I've got Tim withdrawals. Tell me, with Shakur turning down the 3 mil guaranteed for each fight from Top Rank, I can't see Golden Boy and Matchroom offering him that much more. No, I don't know what he's thinking, Tommy, but for his sake, let's hope he knows what he's doing. Tim's got a bigger overseas audience by a long shot. He does, Carl. Yep, he does. Do Australians have to pay regular pay-per-view price when your hometown fighters go overseas? I know Mexico gets Canelo pay-per-views for free. No, we have to pay, Tommy. So if Tim Tszyu fights in the States, we're paying $70. Sometimes it's so we've had the Maloney's that's at different stages of fought on pay-per-views. They might have been $30 or $40. But Kambosos, Tim Tszyu have all been $70. And Jai Patai has always been part of the reality cards. So they're all part of the $70 that we pay for those. But yeah, no free fights for us Aussies, Tommy. If anything, they rub their hands together and go, oh, here we go. Here's another money-making opportunity. Batman says, what's that there, mate? Tim is known globally in the US and Australia and UK, but if he fights and beats a UK fighter, it will definitely help his profile here, wherever that fight happens. Yeah, it would be good for him, Tim. Team Batman, I was going to say. Tim, yeah, he's known, but a bit like Canelo maybe fighting Eubank in England. I think it's a great call from Canelo. No need to go up against the UFC in the States. Do it in England. Massive gate. I don't think they'd get the 80 or 90,000 they're getting for the Joshua fight or when Fury fights, whatever. But who knows? They might get 40 or 50,000 to Canelo and Eubank fight over there. Massive gate, massive pay-per-views all over the world. Just makes sense. Batman is the biggest advocate in trying to get Tim fight in England. Let's make it happen. Yeah, I forgot about that, Carl. Batman, we'll get him there at some stage, mate. And if he does fight over there, I'll go check it out. I'm sure there are a few other people that are watching will do the same. And we might all meet up over there for a coffee or a beer or something. What do you reckon? Yes, Batman, Chavez returns. What a joke. All right, Batman says, works out like between 1,400 to 1,800 with a package to Japan. Well worth the experience of a lifetime. I agree, mate. Carl also says, I was hoping he was on the Wembley card. That's Jai. With the Virgil Ortiz pull-out, I thought the timing may have lined up, but either way, glad to see him back in action. It is, mate, that's for sure. Tommy says, flying is not my thing. Anything over a 6-foot ladder, and I'm ready to call the fire department to help me down. Well, I'm a bit the same, mate. I'm not a big one for heights, but when it comes to flying, mate, I'm not too bad. All right, Peter says, if Ortiz wins the belt, does he give Tim a shot? I think so. I think that's, well, obviously the Sheik, the Turkey Al Sheik has obviously likes that fight, so I don't see any reason why if Ortiz wins that fight that Turkey would say we want Tim to have the next shot. 10 to 15 pounds rehydration is okay, but when you're up to 25 to 30, you need to move up to the next weight class. 100% agree, Tommy. That's my biggest hype fight I can think of for the last 3 years. Tim versus Virgil is huge. Let's hope that happens, Carl. It's a shame Tim had to drop out of the Virgil fight, but Bohachuck is a great replacement. I agree, Tommy. Can't wait for the fight. Can't wait for that whole week. The Riyadi fight and then Virgil and Bohachuck should be a great week of boxing. Tszyu versus, is that Josh Kelly from England, is a nice warm-up fight for Tim. I think so too, Peter. Agreed. I really hope Canelo Eubank happens. I'll definitely be there. Yeah, that would be a ripper. Unfortunately, Batman, if it is in September, if that's the weekend, I'll probably be sitting at the UFC, twiddling my thumbs thinking, what the hell was I thinking booking my flights early? Anyway, Larry, how are you, mate? What do we got? Canelo and Eubank is a big money fight. Lots of people from the UK going to turn up just to get a glimpse of Canelo. Going to be a packed-out stadium fight. Yeah. I think it just makes sense, Larry. The Canelo-Eubank fight makes sense. Maybe Belunga would make sense in New York. A lot of Puerto Ricans, of course, over there. That might make sense. Of course, Mexico versus Puerto Rico. But I just think Canelo would love to go to England and fight Eubank. And I know they've said that Eubank is the harder fight than Belunga. I think Belunga would be the tougher fight. I know he's limited, he's inexperienced, but the guy comes to fight. I think Canelo beats him. I just think Eubanks, it's got Jamel Charlo written all over it for me, for Canelo. It's just a gut feel. It's got Jamel Charlo written all over this fight with Canelo. And while it'd be great to have it in England, I just don't know if Eubank would actually turn up and try and win the fight. Or just turn up and be the opponent and get paid. I don't know. Oh, awesome, Batman. Going to the AJ fight also. Can't wait. Well, all the best there, mate. Should be massive. 90,000 people and apparently sold out in like a day. English boxing fans, the best in the business. And that's saying a lot because of the Mexican fans. But I think England, geez, when you can get 90,000 people, and they would probably get more in if they were able to, is just something that it's hard to get your head around. I'm just glad Virgil is getting a real replacement, not some of these other mediocre guys I see a lot of fighters get. Yeah, good on him. Good on Virgil for taking another big fight with Tim having to pull out. Batman says to Larry, agree, it'll be legendary stuff. Canelo obviously has zero problem stopping Eubank. A nice payday and day's work for Canelo. Surprisingly, the Eubank fight has been well received. I thought it would have been absolutely torn to shreds. But surprisingly, on a lot of the podcasts and YouTube shows, all that sort of stuff, the Eubank fight hasn't been dismissed, which again surprised me. I thought if Belunga was being dismissed, Mungia was even being dismissed, I would have thought Eubank would have 100% been dismissed. But again, as I said, surprisingly being talked about in a good light. Still with Larry. Daniel Dubois doesn't have a shot in hell. He's so open for that right hand. He's going to get knocked down in 4 or 5 rounds, or at least lose almost all the rounds. I agree, Larry. If you look at the Hrgovic fight, he ate a lot of right hands from Hrgovic, who then just ran out of steam. Anthony Joshua is a far better fighter, of course, than Hrgovic, and I think those right hands will keep landing. Dubois did do well against Hrgovic as the fight went on, of avoiding those right hands, but again, Hrgovic is not Joshua, and I just think the right hands will find the mark, and I would say 7 or 8 rounds for me, Larry. All those headbutts he was using against Hrgovic isn't going to be allowed against AJ, who's the A side. Daniel's flat feet and using his head as defence will end up costing him easiest fight to pick. Tend to agree, Larry. I can't really see Dubois having any chance at all against AJ if we see the same AJ that's turned up in his last couple of fights. Yeah, but he's only 25. Good point, Carl. Pretty amazing resume when you look at it. I just like the attitude of the guy. You know, lost to Joyce, came back, earned his shot at Usyk, lost that fight in controversial circumstances, comes back and beats Big Baby, and then Hrgovic, earned another shot. Love the attitude of him, mate. Batman says Canelo has almost done everything other than fight overseas. UK a big marker, even Ali fought here. Yep, I agree, Batman, and I think Canelo sees it that way as well. Carl agrees with me. He'd rather see Canelo destroy Belunga. Just think it's a better fight, Carl. Other than AJ and Fury, Eubank is crazy. Eubank Jr., crazy as it sounds, is known by more casuals than anyone else in the UK, barring those two. Yeah, it's probably not that hard to get your head around, I suppose, Batman, because we all know his dad was massive with that rivalry with Ben. And now Eubank's created his own little niche as well. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me, mate. But, look, if they can cash in on it, then good luck to them. WBC supposedly ordering Canelo Benavidez later this year. David needs the time to squeeze back down to 168 again. I did hear that as well, Andy, that Canelo might say, look, let's forget about the September date. No need to go head-to-head with the UFC. Belunga and Eubank, you know, maybe here and all there. And we might wait till October or November and take on Benavidez. Canelo still gets his 2 fights for the year. And we maybe get that later in the year. And maybe it's a good timing. But I don't know, Andy. There's so many different rumours going around. I mean, as I just said with Canelo, it was going to be Belunga in New York. And then it was going to be Eubank in England. And now it's Benavidez in Vegas later in the year. Who knows? But a decision will have to be made soon, because what are we, about 7 or 8 weeks out from that September date that he normally fights on? So he's going to have to make a call in the next, I would say, week or so. And then we should know who he's going to fight. But I wouldn't rule that out either, Andy, and that would possibly make sense. Forget about the September date, and let's go for Benavidez in October and November. I've missed that there. Batman. I genuinely don't mind if Canelo beats Eubank and Belunga after he's had 65 fights. Yeah. Yep. I think he's earned that, Batman. I think he's earned the ability to pick his fights. I mean, he's cleaned out the division. Bar Benavidez, he's cleaned out the division. I don't want to hear Morrell either. He's not proven either, and he's now up at 175. If Benavidez aside, I think Canelo has fought every single fighter you would expect him to fight. Larry says, what's going on with Zhang? Could we see the winner of Ruiz versus Jarrell Miller perhaps face Zhang? I feel bad for the big Chinese fella. Seems like he's too dangerous for the top guys. Yeah, I haven't heard anything, Larry, but he's a favourite of Turkey, LL Sheikh, so I would think something will happen very, very soon. Maybe it's one of those cards later in the year. Maybe it is the October. It might be the Beterbiev and Bivol card. It could be Fury and Usyk. Who knows? But I think you'll see him on one of those big cards for sure. Zhang is 40. I think Father Time is at the doorstep of a big bang. Yeah, which means he needs to get those big fights ASAP, Carl. I wouldn't mind a Zhang versus Parker rematch. Yeah, well, Parker's sort of been put out in the cold as well, hasn't he, Batman? You haven't really seen anything about him either. And he should be knocking on the door of a big fight. He's had wins over Zhang and Wilder. So he's just gone very, very quiet. But again, he's in that really hard situation. He doesn't want to fight. Well, him and Fury don't want to fight each other because they're friends. He's already fought Joshua. I know Parker would want the rematch with Joshua, but Joshua would probably think, nah, I've already been there and done that. I want to go back over old ground. So he's in a hard situation. Maybe he might maybe he gets Usyk at some stage, but I would think that if Usyk beats Fury again, you would either see him fight Joshua a third time or he would retire. So I doubt that happens. So Parker's in a really difficult situation. So maybe you're right, Batman. Maybe it is the Zhang rematch. Who knows? I just think it was one-sided enough that do we really want to see it? I don't think Zhang beats Parker in a rematch. But anyway, we'll see. Larry says, I wouldn't mind seeing Janibek move up and fight Canelo just because of the style matchup, but I agree, Batman. I don't necessarily only want Canelo to fight Benavidez. Not a bad option there, Larry. I'm a little bit pissed with Janibek at the moment, I will say, but before that, I was, obviously a big fan of his. Makes some sense. Maybe what's got to happen is Canelo fights either Eubank or Belunga next, and if the Benavidez fight's not going to happen, or maybe Janibek goes up and has a fight at 168, and if he wins that, then maybe he's the next fight for Canelo, which would still be a dangerous fight for Canelo. You would think a big, strong, healthy Janibek at 168 would still be a bloody handful for Canelo. But I like it, Larry. I like your thinking there. Carl says, Eubank Jr. and Canelo generates way more money, but just want to see Canelo clear out 168. Yep, I'm with you there, mate. Agreed, Janibek will now be mentioned often. I would definitely pick Janibek over Belunga and Eubank if they were to fight. I agree, Batman. Apart from his little stunt on the weekend, always been a fan of Janibek. That typical, just hard, Russian type of fighter he is. I know he's Russian, by the way. He's Kazakh. But, yeah, no, I think at 168, maybe just throws a real spanner in the works. If I'm Canelo, though, I'm not wanting to fight Janibek either, I'm being perfectly honest. But who knows? I still, apart from the size issue with Benavidez, I'm still not sure why Canelo doesn't want to fight Benavidez. I think he wins the fight. I just think almost it's to the point now where Canelo's dug in his heels and said, out of spite, no. I'm Canelo Alvarez. I call the shots. I'm not going to be forced into anything. If I want to fight him, I'll fight him when and where I choose to fight him. And I just think the more people are on to him about it, the more he's going to dig his heels in and let people know that he is the main man, the A side, the double A side, if you will. But yeah, I might be in the minority here. I would rather fight Benavidez than Janibek if I'm Canelo, if I'm being perfectly honest. But again, you guys might disagree. You says I wouldn't be surprised if Dubois beats AJ. He's due to drop the ball again. Yeah, well, wouldn't be surprised, you, but I still think AJ gets the job done. Canelo Eubank in the UK is huge here. Yeah, I bet they're already talking over there, Batman. Wouldn't be surprised they're already lining up for tickets, to be honest, knowing the British fans. I'd almost, to be honest with their Batman, if they do that in September, I'll be almost willing to wear whatever it costs to change my ticket, and I'll be going to the UK for that. That would be awesome. I really want to. I know you want to get to wherever it is to see Tim fight or wherever it might be. I'd love to get to England and see a big fight over there. I think it'd be great. Parker versus AJ rematch for me. That is a great fight right now. Yeah. I just think AJ, I think he'd be hoping that Fury beats Usyk, but Carl, that's the fight that I think he would want. But again, I'm just not sure whether the Parker fight would really light the fire for AJ, but we'll see. He does do what he's told. If Eddie Hearn says you're going to fight him, well, he'll fight him, won't he? I would probably pick Janibek over Munguia, if I'm honest, says Larry. Great technical fighter. Probably only gets beat by Morel and Billy and Benavidez. Yeah, I think he beats Munguia, and I think he beats Mbili. Morel and Benavidez might be a little bit different, Larry, but I'm not that impressed by Mbili, if I'm being honest. He's capable. But yeah, I don't know. Again, he hasn't really beat anyone of note. Neither probably has morale either. But yeah, I think Janibek and Munguia, that's a good fight, a really good fight. Or maybe I don't think Benavides would stay at 168 to fight Janibek. I think he would just be saying, I think now it's Canelo at 168 or I'm going to 175. Damien Rochester, how are you, mate? What's going on? Been flat out on the damn oxytorch bending rebar all night, but been listening in. Great show. We'll go to the Kambosos fight live if it happens. Yes, I'll be there, Damien. 100%, mate. I will be there to watch George and Liam. Probably been far north Queensland or maybe Brisbane, I suppose. Maybe they want it in a capital city. But, oh, what a fight that would be. Look, it's one of those fights from left field. I'll say I've been one of the ones that said, nah, there's no way Liam and George will fight. Just doesn't seem viable. But here we are. And now that he's being spoken about, especially coming from Noonan Boy, and obviously Eddie Hearn's mentioned it as well, I'm all for it. I think I'm excited by it. I think it'll be a great fight. Great for Aussie boxing as well. I know it doesn't mean stuff all outside of Australia. Well, maybe to most people outside of Australia, but it's one of those instances where you say, yeah, you know what, it might make the most sense globally, but here in Australia, it's a big fight. It's a stadium fight. Let's go. Usyk will retire once he beats Fury again, says Carl. I tend to agree, Carl. What's left for him after that? I know he's talked about going down the cruiserweight, but surely if you're going to keep boxing, you stay and maybe fight AJ again or maybe it's Dubois. I don't know. Again, although I don't think he'd fight Dubois again. But yeah, so I know. I'm with you there, Carl. I think it's if he beats Fury, I think that might be curtains. Damien should do those boxing deep dive tours for Japan. In-away fight. Yep, we can do that, Damien. If you're serious about maybe coming along for a trip, then I will definitely put it out there, put a little package together, and if you want to be part of it, then let's do it. All right, we've got a couple more questions before we go. Geez, the 2 hours has gone so quick tonight. I would have liked AJ versus Zhang. Also, would have been two monsters going at it. Yeah, that would be a really good fight, Batman. It could happen. You never know. Well, AJ's going to have that IBF belt if he wins his fight. And if Usyk beats Fury and retires or just doesn't want to fight AJ again, and let's just say Usyk beats Fury and retires, I would say Fury might retire as well. Not a bad option for AJ for that IBF belt. Against Zhang, maybe there's other vacant belts on the line as well if Usyk does retire. So, yes, there's some big fights still out there, you would think. Why has Australia always suffered at having a world-level heavyweight boxer? Good question, Carl. I don't know. Good question. I have no idea. Anyone else see UFC's Alex Pereira beat up Dincy McKean? UFC Sean Strickland also a solid boxer, but Alex stopped him in UFC 2. Alex helped spar Sean later to beat Izzy. Kind of, Andy. Don't get too caught up in that, mate. They call it sparring for a reason. I'm sure Dempsey might have just been... Look, who knows? Maybe he wasn't in the best shape and just jumped in to help Alex. I saw a little bit of that. To me, it looked like it was just almost... was it even sparring? Or sort of just... tap and a bit of mucking around. I didn't see it as a real spar. So maybe I saw the wrong bit of footage. But yeah, it's a call to spar for a reason, Andy. I never get caught up in who beats who in spars. Janibek was saying a few weeks back he would go to 168 for a Benavides fight. That fight would make sense. What a fight. Janibek Benavides, it would be huge. And yes, Andy, I know, Damien, I know Alex is a good fighter, but again, boxing's boxing, MMA is MMA. So I wouldn't mind if they did fight for real. I think you would see maybe a different version of Dempsey McKean. But anyway, the atmosphere at UK fights is crazy. 100% can't imagine what the 100,000 will sound like for AJ and Dubois. Can you even see the ring in there, Batman? In Wembley Stadium? I know it's a soccer field, so maybe you would, but 100,000 people in a stadium, just crazy. Janibek versus Munguia or Munguia versus Mbili, all great fights I'd love to see. So there's still a little bit of a pulse in the 168-pound division, Batman, if you take Canelo out of the equation. And it'd be interesting to see if Canelo does retire in the next couple of years, what does happen there with Janibek and Munguia and Billy and whoever else is up there at that time. So still some life in that division, mate. Justice Honey, easily our best opportunity heavyweight at the moment, but we'll see how he competes when he steps up in competition. I'm intrigued to see that, Andy, to see what he's got. He's talked up he's going to be more aggressive and punch a little bit more, so let's see what he has to offer as well. Carl says Justice doesn't have heavy enough hands, in my opinion, for heavyweight. Well, we'll see, mate. Let's see what he's got on the... what date was it? It's pretty soon, isn't it? Batman agrees if Usyk beats Fury again, he will retire. All right. Damien, yep, Butler fight on Saturday. Yep, Saturday, I think it's 7 o'clock. Premier Boxing Series from Southport Sharks, Ibby Bella and Jalen Tate, Saturday night. I thought, for some reason, I thought it was on Wednesday night, but obviously not. All right, guys, well, that will do it for this week. I can't believe, again, how fast these 2 hours have gone, but it's always great being on here with everyone. It's very much appreciated. If you haven't liked and subscribed to the page, please do it now. Thanks again for everyone that's watching live and also listening afterwards. Again, if you can't get to the live show, make sure you check us out on Spotify. We do have probably 50 or 60 that listen to it every week, which is great, but we'd like to get more and more people if we can. So look out for this Saturday night. I'll be going live for the watch-along for Bala and Jalen Tate. So check that out, and I'm not quite sure what one is after that, but granted, if it's a big fight, whether it's internationally or here in Australia, we will do the watch along. So thanks again for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.